In tonight's news edition, Jordanians march in support of the armed forces and security agencies after the deadly terrorist attack in Karak. The UN Security Council passes a resolution demanding Israel stops building settlements on occupied Palestinian territory. And hijackers force an airliner to land in Malta, then free all their hostages unharmed and surrender. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. Jordanians marched to voice support for the armed forces security agencies after the deadly terrorist attack in the southern city of Karak. In downtown Amman, demonstrators who marched following Friday prayers called for standing against terrorism and condemned the cowardly terrorist act that targeted security personnel as well as innocent civilians. They also expressed solidarity with the armed forces and security agencies after the terrorist attack. A similar march also took place in Karak, where participants stressed allegiance to the Hashemite leadership and called for supporting the security agencies in confronting attempts to tamper with the kingdom's security and stability. After the United States abstained from voting, the UN Security Council passed a resolution demanding Israel stop building settlements on occupied Palestinian territory, a reversal of U.S. practice to protect Israel from United Nations action. The resolution was put forward at the 15-member council for a vote by New Zealand, Malaysia, Venezuela and Senegal a day after Egypt withdrew it under pressure from Israel and U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. Israel and Trump had called on the United States to veto the measure. It was adopted with 14 votes in favor to a round of applause. It is the first resolution the Security Council had adopted on Israel and the Palestinians in nearly 8 years. Jordan strongly condemned the heinous crime committed by Daesh terrorists who burned alive 2 Turkish soldiers. Minister of State for Media Affairs and Communication Mohammed al-Momani said that this despicable crime once again reiterates the inhumane approach of this terrorist gang. Momani added that Jordan will press ahead with its fight against terrorism and terrorists in cooperation with the international community. He also reiterated Jordan's support to Turkey in its war against terrorism. The minister expressed his condolences to the government and families of the victims. Yesterday, Daesh released a video purporting to show 2 captured Turkish soldiers being burned to death. The video showed 2 uniformed men being hauled from a cage before being bound and torched. Meanwhile, Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan said that Turkey's operation to capture the northern Syrian town of Elbab was almost complete. Speaking at an opening ceremony of a natural gas terminal in the coastal town of Izmir, Erdogan said the Free Syrian Army, with the backing of Turkish forces, would soon capture the town. Erdogan's remarks came as Turkish army pounded Daesh targets in Elbab. The Turkey-backed Syrian rebels have been besieging Daesh-held town for weeks, while clashes between the terrorists and rebels have intensified in recent days. And in Syria, supporters of the Syrian government took to the streets of Aleppo to celebrate after the Syrian army said it had retaken complete control of the city. The last rebel fighters were evacuated from the battered city, handing President Bashar al-Assad his biggest victory of the nearly 6-year-old war. The evacuation of the rebels, who had been holed up in a small battered enclave in Aleppo, puts the city entirely under the control of the army and its allies after years of fighting, according to the state television. Broadcasting live, the state media showed footage of a convoy crossing from the Ramusa Highway Junction in South Aleppo to Al-Rashidin in the countryside just southwest of the city. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin said Russia, Iran, Turkey and Syrian President Bashar al-Assad had agreed to attend peace talks in the Kazakh capital Astana to try to resolve the conflict in Syria. Putin said the evacuation of Aleppo would not have been possible without the help of Russia, Iran and Turkey or the goodwill of Assad. He said the next step for Syria would be a nationwide ceasefire. The Russian deputy foreign minister said he expected the talks in Astana to take place in the middle of January. Hijackers armed with a grenade and pistols forced an airliner to land in Malta, then freed all their hostages unharmed and surrendered after declaring their loyalty to Libya's late leader Muammar al-Gaddafi. The Prime Minister of the Mediterranean island, Joseph Muscat, affirmed that the hijackers were searched and taken into custody. The Airbus A320 was on an internal flight in Libya this morning when it was diverted to Malta after a man told the crew he had a hand grenade. Italian police shot dead the man believed to have been responsible for this week's Berlin Christmas market truck attack, killing him after he pulled a gun on them during a routine check. Police and forensic experts were still investigating the scene later in the morning after the shooting. This report has the details.
The manhunt for Germany's most wanted coming to a violent end Friday, hundreds of miles away from their border. The prime suspect in Monday's attack on a Berlin Christmas market, killed in a shootout with police near Milan. Pulled over in a car by two police officers, authorities say Anis Amri drew a gun and wounded one when asked for ID. It was a routine stop. A source says a rail ticket found on his body suggests he'd fled to France before Italy, federal prosecutors vowing to keep up the investigation to root out any accomplices. 12 people died when a truck was plowed into a packed Berlin Christmas market. This exclusive dashcam footage showing the moments immediately before and after the attack. Islamic State claims responsibility. An undated video released by the jihadists is said to show Amri pledging his allegiance. He was pursued by police after his fingerprints and ID were found in the wreck. The Tunisian is thought to have left for Italy as an economic migrant in 2011, where he was imprisoned for arson after attempting to set fire to a school he had attended. He also faced convictions for vandalism, threats, and theft in Italy and his homeland. Italy kicked him out. After arriving in Germany, he was refused asylum, but avoided deportation due to missing paperwork. Now, security services are under fire for letting him slip through the net at a time of heightened alert across the continent. The shootout came as that same morning German special forces arrested two men suspected of plotting an attack on a shopping mall in the country's west.
Russian President Vladimir Putin said that a statement by U.S. President-elect Donald Trump about the need for the United States to boost its nuclear capabilities was not a surprise and was normal. Trump called for an expansion of the United States' nuclear capabilities yesterday in a tweet that alarmed non-proliferation experts who said that boosting the U.S. arsenal could fuel global tension. Here's more.
A Donald Trump tweet raising alarm bells on Thursday as the U.S. president-elect called for greater expanding and strengthening of America's nuclear arsenal, a red flag for anti-nuke groups who call it a surefire way to stir up global tensions. It's not clear exactly why Trump tweeted the message, but earlier on in the day, Russian leader Vladimir Putin said his country needs to strengthen the military potential of strategic nuclear forces. Meanwhile, the Obama administration is taking the chance to highlight its stance on the matter.
What I can speak to is the approach that this administration has taken to trying to get us on a path to a world without nuclear weapons. First, reducing our stockpile and our launchers through New START. Number two, diminishing the role of nuclear weapons in our security strategy. And number three, securing the Iran deal.
Analysts point out that if Trump and Putin both want to expand their nuclear weapons, it would effectively end arms control efforts that have been in place since the Nixon administration. One expert warning, quote, "This is how arms races begin, with a battle of words."
The Christmas lottery jackpot El Gordo will be shared amongst holders of the tickets sold at a lottery shop in Madrid. Every year, millions of Spaniards get together with friends, family, or co-workers to each buy fractions of the same ticket known as decimas in the over 200-year-old lottery. The jackpot this year dished out a total of 660 million euros to the holders of the winning number, with each ticket in the series allocated a 400,000 euro prize. The Christmas lottery is held every year on December 22nd, and thousands of people stay glued to TV screens for hours watching the results. Twice Wimbledon champion Petra Kvitvikova said she would do everything she could to return to tennis after suffering a hand injury in a knife attack that will keep her out of the sport for at least 6 months. Kvitova was wounded on Tuesday when she fought off an intruder at her home in the Czech Republic, damaging all the fingers on her left playing hand. The world number 11 addressed the media directly for the first time today after an operation to repair the tendons in her hand and was determined to get back to playing.
To vypadá dobře, že tam nejsou žádné komplikace a že to jde tak, jak by to asi mělo jít, takže já bývá nic jiného, než koukat před na to, jak se to bude všechno vyvíjet.
FC Barcelona coach Luis Martinez said there will be no other player like Lionel Messi in soccer history, saying Messi can play wherever he wants and that he is different and cannot be compared to any other. Luis Enrique added he is confident his team will get titles over the season because they play the best football. The team is currently on Christmas break and will have to face Athletic Bilbao next first week of January for the second round of the Copa del Rey.
Con los anteriores, o sea, no hay nada que hacer. No olvidemos que comparar a Messi con los anteriores hace muchos años se jugaba en un nivel físico inferior, muy inferior.
And finally, cold and partly cloudy conditions continue for the rest of tonight with a chance for local rain in the southern and eastern regions. Relatively cold weather prevails across the kingdom tomorrow with a continued chance for rain in the southern and eastern regions. Winds will be southwesterly moderate. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect fair conditions tomorrow with northerly light winds and slightly choppy seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. To end the news, here's a reminder of our top stories. Jordanians march in support of the armed forces and security agencies after the deadly terrorist attack in Karak. The UN Security Council passes a resolution demanding Israel stops building settlements on occupied Palestinian territory. And hijackers force an airliner to land in Malta, then free all their hostages unharmed and surrender. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Nancy Khair. Thank you for watching and have a good night.